All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're tracing a truly incredible thread, the enduring nature of English communal passion. You know, we so often think of history purely in terms of cold dates and grand events, but today, we're looking at it through a much more human lens, how we gather. We're going to start by standing alongside 100,000 roaring fans packed into Wembley Stadium for a legendary 1974 football final. And then we're going to trace that exact same cultural DNA all the way down to the intimate, deeply dedicated gatherings of local village halls and digital fan forums decades later. It's an absolutely fascinating journey about what it means to belong. So here's the game plan. We've got 6 sections to cover today. First, the 1974 Wembley Showdown. Then, Shankly's tactical masterclass. 3 is a one-sided final. 4, the hero's farewell. 5 explores how fan rivalries live on. And we'll wrap up with Section 6, grassroots and community spirit.
Section 1, the 1974 Wembley Showdown, taking place on May 4th, 1974.
Picture this. We're in London. The conditions are cool and overcast, with a light drizzle falling and temperatures hovering right around 11 degrees Celsius. Really, it was the quintessential early May backdrop for an absolutely electric FA Cup final. A massive full-capacity crowd of 100,000 spectators was packed into Wembley Stadium. Just think about the sheer scale of that for a second. It perfectly captures the macro-level cultural importance of this English tradition. The FA Cup was the absolute pinnacle of the domestic season, a massive source of national excitement, broadcast live on both the BBC and ITV. You had passionate fans from the Northwest and the Northeast converging on London, bringing all their regional pride and fierce loyalties right along with them.
Now, the contrasting momentum between the two finalists was, well, basically night and day. On one hand, Liverpool FC was an absolute powerhouse. They just finished second in the first division with 57 points, fresh off a totally brilliant season. On the other hand, you've got Newcastle United, who had a much more turbulent year, finishing down in 15th with only 38 points. Newcastle relied heavily on their star striker Malcolm McDonald, famously known to everyone as Super Mac. And Super Mac was not shy. He made some incredibly bold pre-game predictions about how he was going to completely dominate the match and score. Interestingly enough, Liverpool's manager actually took those exact newspaper clippings of McDonald's confident remarks and literally pinned them up on the dressing room wall to fire up his squad.
Moving right along to Section 2, Shankly's tactical masterclass and Bill Shankly's vision. This match was an absolute masterclass that brilliantly illustrated the philosophy of Liverpool's legendary manager, Bill Shankly. What his side showcased that day was an early, thrilling exhibition of total football. Instead of the static, predictable formations that were typical of the era, Liverpool utilized a fluid, possession-based style. They pressed high up the pitch, completely suffocating Joe Harvey's Newcastle side, who were set up in a much more rigid, traditional 4-4-2 formation. Newcastle simply couldn't cope with the quick transitions and seamless interchanges. I mean, they were overwhelmed right from the opening whistle. And central to this tactical dominance was a truly legendary forward partnership. Liverpool deployed what was affectionately known as the big man, little man duo. You had John Toshek, a towering Welsh international providing incredible aerial dominance and hold-up play. And playing right off him, Kevin Keegan, who brought relentless energy and these lightning-fast starting runs. The two of them had this telepathic connection that absolutely terrorized the Newcastle defense, exploiting literally every inch of space left open by Shankly's high-pressing system. Section 3, a one-sided final, focusing on Liverpool's dominance. You know, the sheer disparity in the game data tells the whole story. You don't even need to watch a video replay to see how one-sided this got. The numbers spell it out perfectly. Liverpool peppered the Newcastle goal with 19 shots compared to Newcastle's meager 7. The final scoreline was a totally dominant 3-0. Defensively, Liverpool's goalkeeper Ray Clements secured a very comfortable clean sheet. Meanwhile, Newcastle star Malcolm McDonald, the very man who predicted he'd dominate, was completely isolated up front by Liverpool defender Phil Thompson. McDonald was restricted to just 2 off-target efforts for the entire 90 minutes. Now, it is worth noting that the first half was actually a pretty tense 0-0 draw, though Liverpool did have a controversially disallowed goal. But let's quickly punch through this second-half timeline to see how the floodgates finally opened. In the 57th minute, Kevin Keegan latched onto a long ball, controlled it expertly with his chest, and smashed a volley right into the top corner, 1-0. Then, in the 75th minute, Steve Heighway capitalized on a flick-on header from John Toshek and slotted it past the keeper, 2-0. Finally, in the 88th minute, Keegan completes his brace with a close-range tap-in at the end of a gorgeous, fluid team move. A decisive 3-0 rout. Section 4,
The Hero's Farewell, Shankly's Last Dance.
I want you to just listen to this iconic quote from BBC commentator David Coleman. Pay special attention to the rhythm of that final line. Keegan 2, Heighway 1, Liverpool 3, Newcastle none. That exact phrasing vividly captured the national imagination. It completely immortalized this dominant performance in the cultural memory of English football. It wasn't just a win, you see. It was a rhythmic, almost poetic dismantling of the opposition, broadcast straight into living rooms across the entire country.
And the final whistle signaled an incredibly emotional climax. The 100,000-strong crowd absolutely erupted. Fans in the famous cop section sang, "You'll never walk alone," and chanted, "We want Shankly," as Bill Shankly embraced his players on the pitch, raising his arms to the adoring crowd. Unbeknownst to almost everyone at that exact moment, this would actually be his final match before his total surprise retirement announcement that summer. It was the perfect, triumphant farewell to a manager who had literally transformed a second-division club into a global powerhouse.
Section 5. Fan rivalries live on through digital communities. So we've seen the macro-level stuff, 100,000 people roaring at Wembley. But if we jump forward 35 years, we see that exact same intense passion living on in digital micro-communities. Take a look at the chaos of a 2009 Newcastle United fan blog. It's hilarious. You have users with names like Batty and Worky Ticket having these deep, late-night Friday debates over whether the blog moderator should be using IP address bans or email bans to keep out trolls. You have absurd, totally random arguments mentioning a mysterious user dubbed the Star Wars robot. And of course, you have fans bonding over their shared frustration with those intrusive, full-page interstitial ads ruining their browsing experience. It just proves that decades after the Wembley final, even when the club is struggling, the fundamental human need to gather, squabble, banter, and share a common identity remains incredibly strong. The stadium simply moved online.
Section 6. Grassroots and Community Spirit. Village Spirit in the Hilltop Villages.
Let's zoom all the way down into the quintessential grassroots of English culture now. Because whether it's 100,000 people filling Wembley Stadium or just a few dozen residents in a rural village, the drive to build a space for community is exactly the same. It is absolutely incredible that local residents in these hilltop villages banded together, holding local fetes and fundraisers to raise a massive £105,000. And that was just to extend their local parish hall for community bookings. It was a monumental local effort, highlighting how deeply, fundamentally, people value a physical space to just come together. And what happens inside those spaces? Well, this perfectly captures the heart of village life. Here we have the Little Bears preschool making an Easter visit to St. Leonard's, complete with a cutout donkey, stuffed teddies, and fully engaged children. These early childhood traditions form the very earliest layers of communal gathering. It's right here where the fabric of a tight-knit community is first woven, long before these kids ever step foot in a football stadium. And the local newsletter? That acts as the glue for all of this, functioning very much like the fan blog we looked at earlier. In it, you'll find everything from an elegant local event like Ruby's Charity Ball, featuring champagne, a caricaturist, and even a table magician, right alongside a simple classified ad for a neighbor's holiday home in Andalusia, Spain. From sharing resources to organizing midsummer dances, it is all about hyper-local connection. It's a beautifully complex ecosystem of shared lives. Bringing it all together, local family gatherings showcasing handmade educational cutouts represent these quiet, completely unglamorous moments of shared effort, volunteering, and local pride. And here's the kicker. These moments are the exact same cultural glue that binds thousands of fans to a football club. It is the exact same human spirit. The scale changes, sure, but the human motivation absolutely does not.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder. When you really look closely at it, are the grand spectacles of sports, like 100,000 people roaring for Keegan and Shankly, and the quiet, steady rhythms of raising money for a village hall, just different expressions of our universal need to belong to something bigger than ourselves? It seems that whether we're wearing bright team colors or just reading the local village newsletter, our desire for community is the most powerful force we have. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and hey, keep looking for those meaningful connections in your own community.